Oh my God, I've been waiting for this podcast for I think like 10 years. 10 years.
Like 3.
Dude, we've been podcasting.
Well, I've been podcasting for 10 years.
Yes.
We were podcasting before that was a thing.
Yeah, but we were podcasting before podcasting was podcasting, right? Isn't that the way to look at it?
It was audible message boarding.
That's a good way to look at
That
it.
sounds like a torture device.
We got to start with Twitter today because this was interesting. I sent out a tweet on your Twitter account because I have access to it.
Yeah.
And I just was letting everybody know that your brother John was going to be with us. Hello, John, by the way.
How's it going?
Good. And I realized you didn't follow your own brother on Twitter.
Thanks, Rob.
I don't.
You do now because I went ahead and hit follow. You did not even follow your own brother.
I thought I followed everybody in the
blocked me.
family. Call me Tim Brewster.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
Dang.
So now you guys.
For real, I swear to God I was following you. Now I feel
too,
bad.
So that was news, but
Yeah, I brought you beer, by the way.
that helps.
I'm blaming this shit on Elon.
It helps.
So we got a wide array of beer. So John's going with Coors Light. That is, as you come in camo, that is like the quintessential hunting beer, isn't it?
Yeah. You can still hunt with Coors Light.
And you're drinking. What are you drinking?
This is from our buddy Craig in Georgia.
Okay.
This is we've still got a stash of Monday Night Brewing. from
Yes.
him, which is outstanding stuff. So I've got the double IPA here I'm hitting. So it's a tasty beer. They do a good job with the IPA.
And
I
I'm.
like the IPAs.
You do like IPAs?
You do. Yeah.
I like anything that's liquid. And
And
has beer somewhere in the title.
So I'm going with Guinness, okay? And for good reason. My daughter Mary, who's our third child, got on a plane today. She's heading to Dublin to study at the University of Maynooth for the next 6 months. So
that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, that's pretty damn
that's
cool.
awesome.
So we're gonna go over in March and visit her, but I thought I would toast her with a glass of Guinness, maybe 2 glasses of Guinness.
Nice.
But Guinness is one of those you can't really drink out of the can. You got to pour it in the bottle or in the glass.
It does kind of beg for a glass.
So another reason I want to start with Twitter, and before we dive into the whole family dynamics with you and John, is you got blocked by Colorado assistant coach Tim Brewster today.
I did.
So you've been blocked by Desmond Howard, and you've been blocked.
Oh, can you get the sweatshirt? I mean, Coach Prime hooked me up.
Yeah.
Come on.
If Coach Prime hooked you up, that would have said Prime on it.
Yeah, pretty much would have. It would have been like Prime over the Buffalo.
So something tells me you had a strong reaction to Tim Brewster's militaristic speech.
So I don't even look at that as militaristic. I mean, it's
Stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down.
It's stupid. A couple of people used the term performative, and there is no other better term for it than that. I'm not a fan of, I guess what I call discipline for discipline's sake. I like discipline that has a purpose. And I mean, I don't know, John, tell me if I'm fucking wrong here. But when we were at Nebraska, Tom Osborne, who's kind of viewed as sort of a quiet, discipline-minded coach, he had zero of that performative discipline, zero of that discipline for discipline's sake. And the example I would give is travel gear or travel clothing. So his rule was all you had to do was wear Nebraska gear. He didn't make you wear a coat and tie, didn't make you dress up. Everybody didn't have to wear exactly the same thing other than he wanted everybody to wear Nebraska gear. Now, it kind of, because in his take, you're sitting there, you're in a coat and tie, you're uncomfortable, you're on a bus, you're on an airplane, you're thinking about the fact that the freaking shirt collar is too damn tight and you're sweating your ever-loving balls off in a sport coat because it's late August or early September. Guess what you're not thinking about? Getting your mind right for the football game.
Right.
And that's the thing that still drove
We
me
all
nuts.
wore the same outfit, though. I remember.
Well,
we all had like the team warm up.
It kind
for
of
the most part.
like my first
The Apex stuff?
The
Yes.
Apex thing.
Still got some. It's awesome.
But it degenerated kind of quickly because actually we did hit a point where you had half the guys wearing like Husker power tank tops and Husker workout shorts on road trips. And finally they were like, you know what, let's get a little uniformity there, but still keep it comfortable. So they got team warm-ups for everybody. And that was great. It worked. You're comfortable. It was easy. It was perfect. And guess what? We'd sit there thinking about the game and thinking about what we needed to be thinking about, and not the fact that, hey, I just got out of the shower after practice and I'm going to go put on a coat and tie so coach thinks I look good.
Right.
Now, on the flip side, if you showed up late to a meeting, if you mouthed off to a university staffer, if you missed a practice, if you didn't make it to class, if you had GPA problems, guess what? You're running till you freaking puke.
But
The discipline was there for the things that it mattered for.
Okay, let's take the discipline of that speech out of it, because Brewster's doing 60 minutes of hell when these buses pull up. You had to have a coach, and I'm going to get back to that. You had to have a coach that was the rah-rah guy, though. You had to have a screamer somewhere.
Kevin Steele.
Yeah, but I mean, it kind of worked for his guys. And, man, you heard McBride go off at dudes at halftime.
For sure.
But it kind of worked for them. But McBride had a message in there, and it was, with those guys, it was incredibly highly directed.
Yeah.
I mean, they really knew how to, those guys were master psychologists. They knew how to push buttons, and they knew how to get the most out of people. It wasn't just mindless yelling. And that's what I heard when I saw that video.
See, what I thought about it, and I talked about this on my radio show, was that, parts of that speech are okay right before the game. It's January, and you're talking about 60 minutes of hell, and when the bus pulls up, they're going to be, I'm like, well, you're just way off on the timing of the speech. If you want guys to stand up, sit down, whatever, but when you're saying 60 minutes of hell, I'm like, okay, end of August, first part of September, that when you're going to TCU, that sounds really good. You need that little emotional push. Right now, it just looks stupid.
Right.
It does.
It's all showboating right now, I think, too. I mean, performative is a great word for it. It's like, let's see how much attention we can garner on Twitter.
But and I think that's from because they put that out there personally. I don't think, and this is my defense of Colorado football, because a lot of people think it's going to be a colossal fail.
I don't know if it is.
Either do I. If there's been one guy that's on brand, Deion Sanders hasn't changed his style at all. I mean, Ever. Deion is who he is.
Has he failed yet?
No.
Not really.
No.
Not really.
So,
but
like him or not,
people get upset with the Lamborghinis and the Louis Vuittons, but that's what he does. He's always done that.
You'd almost, if he came out and if all of a sudden he wasn't that way, that's what would seem disingenuous.
Yeah, if he came out like T.O., it'd be really odd.
That would be, that's when I'd be sitting there going
hold on a second.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm not buying this.
Well, it's kind of like people loved it when he was at Jackson State, right? I mean, everybody loved it.
Yeah.
But they expected him to change who he was by going to a power. Well, now that you've gone up to a bigger school, you've got to change who you are. There's no way that was going to happen.
No.
Not for
and
him.
it's, for some people it works. I mean, as much as the dude drives me nuts, PJ Fleck.
Yeah.
It kind of works for him at Minnesota. I'm not saying it's great, but it kind of works for him. I mean, the guy at Rutgers, Shiano.
Yeah.
When he first took over there, and granted he's alumni, but when he first took over as the head coach at Rutgers, you had the chopping wood thing, and I mean he kind of had a little shtick. It wasn't like PJ, but there was a little shtick there, and it kind of worked. I mean, these are Power 5 schools. It
was a team that needed it, and he gave it to him right away.
Yeah, and same thing for Fleck at
worked
Minnesota.
great.
That's a great point.
Yeah, so they needed something to bring him back to the forefront.
I mean, I think Matt Rule, we saw in his press conference, has the stir in him. I mean, he speaks with a cadence, and so let's just dive right in, because your son Isaac just went through the transfer portal. He's committed to North Dakota State, so he's going to a really good football team. But Nebraska was in the mix. Take us through what that recruiting was like, your dealings with Coach Rule, and we'll just start having this conversation right now.
So you want it from the transfer portion?
Yeah. Why transfer? And
Actually, let's back up 2 years.
We do whatever you
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's fair.
We got time. John said he's good till 8 o'clock.
Okay, that's cool. This could be the longest podcast in Doc Talk history.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm going to shut up and let him talk. That'll shrink it down.
So, I mean, coming out of high school, you got to, at least for me, you look at the kid, and he had a great senior year, right? So he's one of the state's top centers. He hit all the awards, what have you. And recruiting, for whatever reason, for him was just slow. He had a few offers, some D2s come in, a lot of walk-on offers. And Nebraska was in the mix, but it was odd. It was, it was Scott. So no disrespect to him, but he got tossed around between a recruiting coordinator, then Greg Austin, and then Frost finally took over, quote, recruiting.
I'm going to interject here a little bit just from a comparison standpoint of somebody watching third party.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you were coming out of high school and you kind of had three people looking at you at Nebraska? You had Osborne, I'll kind of lump Tenneper and Dan Young into one unit.
Right.
And then you had Dave Gillespie, who's the recruiting coordinator.
Sure.
Head coach, position coach is recruiting coordinator.
Yeah.
And I remember they had been recruiting you. You'd been down for the spring game your junior year in high school, talking to them over the summer, Nebraska football camp, summer before your senior year. And then it was almost like your senior season started and everything went like radio silent from Nebraska.
Right, yeah.
And I remember like BYU was recruiting you, Oklahoma's offering you. I mean, you were going to be the first in-state kid to actually sign a scholarship offer with the University of Oklahoma, I believe, in history.
Yeah.
No joke.
You were going to go to OU?
Oh, I was close. Real close.
Yeah. I remember it was like Oklahoma number one, BYU number two, and then there was kind of like this smorgasbord of like K-State, Iowa State, Iowa, a couple of other places. And I remember,
handwritten letters from Bosworth. I mean, you're like, holy cow.
Dude, and their media guides were something else. Honestly, they had a lot more conference and national titles than Nebraska did. And so I remember like the inner and outer line covers of their media guide was nothing but all their championship rings throughout history in rows.
Wow.
Yeah, just filled.
Yeah. Anyway, but I remember finally, like a week or two into the season, I can't remember. I think it was Dave Gillespie came to me and he was like, "Hey, Rob, I got to talk to you." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "How come John's not coming to any of the game day visits?" And I'm like, "Because you guys haven't invited him." And I remember Gillespie's face just went like gray, like just ashen. And he was just like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, nobody's invited him." And he's like, "Wait, Dan hasn't been calling you?" And I'm like,
Dan hasn't called in 6 months. He's going to Oklahoma. He's going to be a boomer sooner.
And so what had happened was Milton Dan thought Gillespie was talking to John. Gillespie thought Osborne was talking to him. Osborne thought Milton Dan were talking to him. Like nobody was talking. And then finally they actually had this come together moment like a few weeks into your senior season. And all of a sudden it's like
home visits.
Phone. It was like, "Oh my God, we're so sorry." Like, and I remember it was literally like the next week they had talked to you. They had already called you, so they can't call you. Like once they've called
That's
you,
right,
they can only call like it was like 2 calls a week. And like Osborne had called and talked to you and Dan Young or Milt had called and talked to you. And so Dan comes to me and he's like, "Hey, Rob, you got to have John give Coach Osborne a call tonight. We can't call him, but he can call us."
Was he drunk?
No, that's how Dan talked. That was just how he talked.
You're right. I do remember that.
Hey, Trav. It's like, "Are you still with Fox 42?
God, his calls were the best, though.
Oh,
Just
my God.
Long pauses. "What'd you have for dinner, John?" And like, "Well, I just had roast beef." Then just silence for 30 seconds. Like, "You there, Coach?" "Yeah, I'm here."
Yeah, that's great, John. And he was like a great guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm like, okay. So I remember going home and I'm just like hanging out, watching. You're still at high school practice. I'm just sitting and Mom's at work. I'm sitting in the easy chair next to Dad watching TV. And like every 10 minutes, Dad's looking over at me like, "Why are you here on a Thursday night?" I'm like, "I just figured I'd come hang out with you guys." And then you got home and you said, "What are you doing here?" "I just figured I'd hang out with you guys." You sat down and I was like, "Oh, hey, by the way, here's Coach Osborne's number. You got to give him a call."
You should call him.
No, anyway, my point was like there was sort of like this coming together. Everybody realized that there was sort of this, "Oh shit, we haven't been talking to this one kid because each of us thought the other guy was doing it," that they kind of fixed with you.
Right.
I kind of felt like that never happened with Issac.
Not really. Just because it felt like he was getting passed around. And Frost even came out. He said, he goes, I'm going to take over the recruiting process from Austin now on you, and I'll be your guy. I'll be contacting you. And it was, even then, it was hit and miss. You'd get text messages, or he would get text messages like, hey, I'm going to give you a call tonight. And not to beat up Scott, but no call happened. And so that gets frustrating, especially as a parent. You're watching and like, God dang it, man, I played with you. Can you not just call the kid? So
Wow.
that went down. And then, what was tough is you'd go to like Iowa, for example, is a good one. We get there and doors wide open. They know our first name. Like, hey, John, how's it going? Isaac, what's going on? Knew his background, my background, Rob's background, my dad's background at the university. Just knew everything about us. Where recruiting trips at Nebraska, you're just sitting at a table, you eat. One or two coaches might come up. They look at your name tag. Oh, hey, Isaac. And then that was it. Then you go to the game. You're on the field. It was just pretty half-assed.
Pretty impersonal.
Yeah. Very.
Okay.
So, and I would say just about every other school we took a trip to was real personal. It rolled out the red carpet, all that stuff. So that first go-around, that was the biggest reason, Nebraska fell off the page for him. And it came down to K-State, Missouri. K-State, we knew Connor Riley, the O-line coach there for a long time. He actually played with my brother-in-law at UNO back, a long time ago.
That'd have been late 90s.
Yeah. Early 2000s. And so they knew him. He was recruiting him pretty hard. Marcus Johnson, the O-line coach at Missouri, actually laid out a clear plan of how Isaac can get to the field, and they wanted him at a center and went down for a spring game visit. And that was all during COVID, so we had to, everybody had to pay their own way at that point. There was no official visits. Everything was still kind of locked down. Then you get there and you watch the spring game and had a great time, and we're on the drive home, and Eric Link, the recruiting coordinator for the area, he called to go see what we meant about not a lot of opportunity, or there's plenty of opportunity at center. We don't have a lot of guys. And so that call in and of itself kind of sealed it for Isaac coming home and knowing he had a good shot and a good game plan to get on the field at Missouri. So that was the initial go around. That's the whole reason he went to Missouri. And I remember I talked to Frost. I bet it was 2 or 3 days before Isaac was going to commit. And I told him, I go, listen, he's probably going to commit to Missouri. He's leaning hard that way. And he's like, why would he do that? I'm like, Scott, you guys just haven't called him. You haven't shown him how he can get to the field. You haven't, not catered to him, but just built a relationship with him.
I mean, you were in sales, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what sales is. It's building a relation. I mean, the best product doesn't always win.
No.
It's who you have a relationship with, who I feel comfortable with, who I trust.
Yeah.
If you don't build that trust, no matter if you two went to school there, he didn't care.
No, that's just it. It's like, dang, all you had to do was call the kid. He probably would have been all in, walk on, whatever it is. So ends up going to Missouri. Obviously redshirts that first year. He has a blast. He's, got a ton of good friends there. Year 2 comes around and there's some opportunity there for him. He feels like he can earn that scholarship, if you will, and kind of just goes through all the fall camp, and he gets a couple opportunities here and there, and he can start to see the writing on the wall that like scholarship kids are getting every opportunity out there, and he's not getting anything. So that pushed him into that transfer portal.
Did you guys see that when you were players, that scholarship kids always got the chances above walk-ons?
I did.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought there was sort of at least from my perspective, because I'm looking at guys. So, I mean, I'm kind of looking, I guess, sort of like there were walk-ons, but man, then you had guys like Joel Wilkes, although he was kind of, I guess, I mean, there was sort of like that old school gray shirt. Like, you're going to walk on, but after 2 years, we're putting you on scholarship. It's sort of a...
And that was Vedral. Hoskinson, I think, was promised to
get
on scholarship
and it's,
year 2.
Now the thing is that was Tom Osborne.
Right.
And if Tom Osborne told you that shit was happening.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, you did not have there wasn't, hey, we're going to do this for you, and then it would end up not happening. There were guys who just... You'd be sitting there going like, okay, this kid, we brought him in on scholarship. He has never ever going to play. It was just, sometimes it was a complete swing and a miss. And I'm thinking of a couple guys in particular that I played with. And man, they'd have a sit down with the kid and basically tell him, listen, here's the deal. You are never, ever going to play here. It's just not going to happen. We're going to give you a couple of options. If you want to transfer, we will work with you to find you a spot somewhere that works for you. So they would put a lot of effort into helping a kid transfer. If the kid didn't want to transfer, was kind of invested from an academic standpoint in school, close to their degree, what they would do is they would basically, I don't know all the ins and outs of it in terms of how it worked within the rule system, but basically they would cut you from the football team. You'd lose the scholarship, and then they would hire you on as an undergrad assistant coach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you would be a university employee.
Okay.
So you would be employed by the athletic department or the university on the whole.
But still getting paid.
But you would still have everything paid for as a university employee.
Okay.
So basically the salary would match whatever it costs to go to school.
Okay.
And it freed up the scholarship then.
Yeah, so it would free up a scholarship the next cycle. But they would do that, and that basically Osborne's take was we will figure out what works best for you. We're not just going to cut you loose and toss you on the street. Osborne was very hardcore about that. He would, if you were there, he would do what he could to keep you there and keep you in school and see that initial commitment all the way through. And so for a guy like Joe Wilkes or Hoskinson, when you had that kind of setup, it worked, and you knew it was going to work because it was Tom Osborne, and he wasn't going back on that.
Right.
So it was kind of different then in terms of that regard. But I saw sort of a two-tier system within the walk-ons, because there were those guys that you looked at and you're like, okay, that dude's a walk-on, but he's pretty fucking good. And I mean, and those were the guys that you looked at, I mean, like a Joel Wilkes, a Jared Tomich.
Yeah.
You had the guys who were kind
Tomich didn't walk on, did he?
He was a Prop 48.
Prop 48.
Okay.
Where you had to walk on, but he was.
Yeah, he was pretty damn good.
He was a stud.
Yeah. But you
Prop 48 just means he didn't have a high enough ACT, right?
You just had to sit out a year.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is, so you sit and talk
I
with
mean-
those guys. I remember Kevin Raymakers would have been a Prop 48. Dude was fucking smart. He just couldn't do standardized
Yeah,
tests.
because that's what standardized tests are stupid.
Yeah.
They're biased.
Yeah, no,
Christian, same thing. He obviously probably wasn't trying at all.
No, I don't.
You look at that dude now, and he's freaking multimillionaire.
Guys all
financial
over.
aid or whatever.
Yeah, the guy's all over Twitter. Or
Yeah.
not Twitter. What's the employment? The LinkedIn. There we
Oh,
go.
is he? Christian is?
Oh, God, yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's like his primary usage of social
Oh.
media is all LinkedIn. But no, but yeah, and then you had, there were outliers too. I mean, there were the guys like the Brian Pruitts, the Brady Caskies, who were like the true work their way up the ladder to the point where by the time they were seniors, these guys were alternate starters on the O-line.
But let's take Prop 48 out of it. You were at a time where North Dakota State, South Dakota State, they're still Division II, right? And the scholarship money's not there. It's not as competitive. And you had Nebraskans who'd go, okay, I'll walk on because I'm going to get that chance in 2 years. Now it's not that way anymore.
No, and I do think you would get that. I think you legitimately, John, I agree with you. I think there was a difference in terms of how the scholarship guys and the walk-ons were treated. And I'm not saying not a good, bad way, but if you were a scholarship guy, they saw that as a investment. There was a vested interest in that, and they were going to try to get those guys.
You were going to get a couple more opportunities. Now,
Yeah.
you're talking about having your tiered system for your walk-on guys. I totally agree with it. And you'd have those guys come out, your top-tier walk-ons that they would perform.
Yeah.
And you could not take a look at them.
Couldn't ignore them.
Yeah. So they made it painful to not be on the field for the coaches. So they're like, I'm getting a scholarship one way or the other. I'm performing here. And
Because correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't both Jeff and Joel Makovic start out as walk-ons?
Yeah. Yep.
Joel, I think, was another one of your gray shirt, if you will.
Yeah,
like,
whatever
come
that
here
term
and
they used.
we'll give you a scholarship the next year.
But not everybody. I mean, some schools would do that and say, "Hey, you're going to gray shirt with the promise of a scholarship." But if you didn't perform, if they knew you weren't going to play,
Again, that was Osborne
Right.
and his staff. That, I mean, there was a group of people that, I'm not saying they were perfect, but damn, they did everything in their power. If they made a promise, I think they really made the legitimate effort to see that through.
So Scott messes up the whole recruiting thing with Isaac. He goes to Missouri, 2 years at Missouri.
Yep.
The plan they laid out does not come through.
Yeah,
right?
it doesn't fall in place, if you will. So and like I said, he can see the writing on the wall. He's like, I can stay, I guess. I'll probably finish it out.
That costs you more money, though.
Oh, yeah. That's just financially, I'm thinking like, dang, all right, well, we'll make it work. It's, if that's where you want to be, you got your buddies there. I totally get it. And he had some good friends there. So 2 years, you're in the group. I mean, it's just how it is with college athletes. He's still tight with a bunch of guys down there. So he decides to leave. He tells the coaches.
Were they surprised?
The O-line coach was a little bit. He thought he was a little early to leave. He's like, I'd love to have you stay, another year, give it another shot. We could use you. How do we make this work? He's like, listen,
Because he's got 3 years eligibility, right?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah. And Isaac was like, listen, I just think I need to make the move now if I'm going to make a move. If I stay here and I end up getting stuck on the sidelines, I'm going to be on the sidelines the rest of my football career. So the O-line coach was pretty good to him. Head coach was like, took it a little personal, which I totally understand. You're a head coach, and in the world of transfers now, you don't want kids to leave your program. It looks bad, right? No matter what level there are. I think it's the way it's going to be now. I think, what's the average? Like 15 per team now, I think, leaves.
I don't know if it's that high, but it's. I think it depends on where you're at and how good you are.
That's probably not a bad number, though.
It's the new way for football, so it is what it is. But so he, in my view, leaves on good terms, and in a sense where he goes down and talks to the strength coach, and the strength coach is like, man, I loved having you in here. Big hugs, going to miss you. You're going to do awesome wherever you end up. Equipment manager, same thing. They loved him. He gets his helmet, his jersey, so they sent him on his way pretty good. And I think in his mind, and well, he even said this, he goes, I just figured I'm going to leave Missouri and probably just walk on in Lincoln. Get a bunch of Adidas gear. It'll be awesome. Be fun as heck, run it out on that field in front of all those people. And then I'm going to be in misery for 3 hours standing on the sidelines. The kid wants to play bad. So that happened. He comes home. We're hanging out. All of a sudden, North Dakota State starts calling him. And then I would say a week after he got back home, they offered. And I think it caught him off guard a little bit and gave him a bunch of confidence, which was good. Visited Augie. He still had those offers from the D2 schools. And
I'm not going to kid you. I don't want to say Ryan was like in tears, but I think Ryan was like, oh my God, this is going to be the greatest thing ever.
It had been pretty cool. And Augie treated him great. They went up there for a visit, and rolled out the red carpet. He's going into something in health administration. So what was it? President of Sanford sat down with them. They had lunch together. So
yeah, you've got two huge.
Avero and Stanford.
Avera and Sanford are both up there, and both are big.
Stanford's getting sold, though, so maybe it's a good thing he got out.
Who knows? Yeah. But, regardless, it was,
Guess what's all over Fargo?
Sanford.
Avera and Sanford.
They own everything in the area, damn near.
They got the whole Dakotas locked down.
So, but that impressed him. So, South Dakota was impressive to him. And then obviously North Dakota State and their tradition up there is just ridiculous, right? They're
a down year is going to the national title game and not winning.
Right.
Which was this year.
This year, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're like 10 of the last 12 championships.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Which is incredible. So, but you also come in on the time, a very difficult time if you want to walk on to Nebraska because you're in a coaching change. So you've got coaches who are like, I've got to go find players because if we don't find players, we're screwed. So how does this all work?
So I'm looking at it, and my wife and I are both looking at it like, well, this guy's at the podium saying he wants legacy kid. He's going to lock down every legacy kid. He's locking down the state again. He wants all these kids to not leave the program. It's like, okay, well, cripes, Isaac fits every one of those or checks every one of those boxes. Legacy kid, you know. Rob and I both played there. Both of his uncles on my wife's side played there. He's a, you know, in-state kid, you know, heck of a good player. You know, they need a center. You know, they brought in that Ben Scott, who I think is going to be pretty good. And he clearly came right out and said that his position's center. Well, they don't have a backup center, so there's an opportunity. So we were pretty excited about it. Like, you know, you got a father who played there, and your son might be able to go there, which would be pretty neat. And Isaac was real excited about that opportunity too, and he's got some good confidence because of the North Dakota State thing. And then, I'll back up a little bit. We do that official visit at North Dakota State after they had offered, and again, red carpet gets rolled out, meet the coaches, they say everything right. It had an awesome time up there. You know, go through their tradition. You see all the rings, all the trophies and stuff. I mean, it's impressive. Have you ever been up there?
I have. Well, I mean, I've been to the Fargo Dome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been on campus. I've seen the Fargo Dome. I haven't seen it from that perspective where you talk about, like, the trophies, the rings, et cetera.
Super cool. I mean, it's like Lincoln was back in the mid to late 90s. I mean, the tradition, how the players are. We'd see random players. Everyone would come up and shake your hand, and just a great atmosphere. And then they just built brand new facilities, which is on par with what Nebraska currently has now. Not what they're building. What they're building is just unbelievable. Nobody will be able to touch it, which is fine. But,
you know, it doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
Facilities. They don't. You know what matters? Money.
So,
NIL.
hey, little side tangent here, and then we're going to loop back in. I remember, like, month one with the Giants during off-season mini camps. Myself and then Scott Gregg, who was one of the big offensive tackles in our recruiting, University of Montana kid, FCS school, John.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was our second-round pick. He and I are walking along underneath Giants Stadium with the offensive line coach, Pete Mangurian. Pete was a LSU guy. Played with Bob Dugas down at LSU.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Dr. Dugas, who's one of the team doctors down in Lincoln, had played with the O-line coach for the Giants at the time. Anyway, he was just kind of asking Scott and I just like, hey, how are you guys doing? You hanging in there with the workouts, all of this stuff? And he kind of asked us sort of a generalized, what do you think of things kind of question. And I remember both Scott and I made a comment about some of the facilities, and we kind of talked about the weight room. And I remember Scott saying that the weight room at Montana at the time, now keep in mind, this is mid-1990s.
Yeah.
So this is 3 decades ago. Even then, Scott said the weight room at Montana was far bigger and far better outfitted than the New York Giants weight room. And I remember
going to the players.
Well, bingo. And I remember Mangurian looks at Scott and I, and he goes, hey, you know all that money that's going into facilities in college? And we're like, yeah. He goes, that's going to pay your salaries now.
See? And that's
the direction it's all. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's the direction it's all going.
So you go through the walk, the official visit at North Dakota State. Are you still getting recruited by Nebraska hard yet or not?
There's Raiola's talking to him a fair amount. Haven't heard from Brule almost the entire time, which is, you know, you see him all over Twitter. He's reaching out to kids. They're having visits. It's like, man, this just doesn't look good. Doesn't feel good. Would be nice to have him contact him. And it had a lot of people reach out to Rule on Isaac's behalf too. Like, hey, you got to take a look at this kid. You don't want to miss on him. He'd be a heck of an asset to your team. So we do the North Dakota State visit. That was 2 weeks ago, I believe. Maybe it's going on 3 weeks. Well, it was a Wednesday, Thursday. That Friday, we lined up a visit to Nebraska because he needed to make a decision because the following Monday, school starts at North Dakota State.
Oh, okay.
So it's a fast turnaround. So we go down to Lincoln, and again, they did an awesome job. Red carpet gets rolled out. We meet most of the coaching staff. I've known Dom Raiola a long time. Really like the guy. He's awesome. So kind of have a little bit of relationship with Donnie, and he did a great job. Did film study, which I can sit there and watch film with coaches all day long and watch them break down stuff. And he talked about his family and his coaching philosophy and how he does things, how he's running practice, things like that, where he thinks Issac could fit in. Then you got, Teddy Prohaska comes in the room, who Issac, I damn near grew up playing with. We did Little League football together and all that stuff. So good buddy of his, is hanging out with him in the whole recruiting trip and see the facilities. And then the last thing, it's like, listen, I'd like to talk to Coach Rule if it's possible. They're like, oh yeah, he'll be in next. And so he comes in and legit, he seems, like I told you, kind of fidgety and nervous. And there was a TV on that he couldn't get turned off. And I just like, hey, why don't you just unplug it? And he unplugs it. He finally just sits down. He goes, so you guys got some questions for me? And he goes, what can I help you with? I go, yeah, I do. And I go, I appreciate you taking the time and taking a look at Issac. I go, I'm just curious. I go, I look at this kid and I go, obviously maybe rose-colored glasses, but what you're saying on the podium, this kid's checking every one of those boxes. I go, help me understand that. He goes, I get it, yeah. And he goes, so you're talking legacy and an in-state kid. And I go, yeah. And he goes, I'll get this out of the way first. He goes, just to be clear, it's a walk-on offer. I go, okay, I appreciate that. He goes, legacy, he goes, that can be a double-edged sword. He goes, I've seen it both sides. He goes, the last thing I want to have happen here is your son come here. We tell him he's going to get an opportunity. He doesn't get the opportunity you think he should have. You're pissed at me. He's pissed at me. Now everybody's pissed at me. And I'm like, oh, that's a fair point. And he goes, I've had it happen. He goes, I've also had it happen where it worked out and it was awesome. And he goes, I'll be honest with you. He goes, Issac, he looks at Issac. He goes, you have an offer to North Dakota State, don't you? I said, yeah. That's a hell of an offer. He goes, I'm not the guy that's going to talk you out of that. He goes, during pro day, he goes, we didn't come to Lincoln. He goes, we went to UNI and we went to North Dakota State to find linemen. He goes, that's where we went. He goes, I'm hoping to change that in Lincoln when I get my guys here. I'm like, okay. I go, well, if you look.
That's a big thing when he says my guys.
My guys. So hold on. So I go, all right, well, look at the current 23 class that you have. And I go, I'm not trying to compare them, but I go, Issac's got 2 years, granted, not a lot of game experience at an SEC school, though, but I go, it's an SEC school, and he went against one of the top defenses in the SEC. I go, he's got some good playing experience, and he's been in the college program. He knows what to expect. He goes, you're right, he does. He goes, I'd love to see some game film on him. I go, well, have you looked at any film on him at all? He goes, nope. He goes, I haven't looked at the 23s film either. I'll be perfectly honest with you. They're not my guys. I was like, damn.
Really?
He goes, I'm going to coach them. I'm excited to get them here and see what I can do with them. But he goes, not my guys.
See, that's no different than going back to Colorado. Dion's coming in saying, I'm bringing my guys with me. If you don't like it,
I'm bringing my own luggage.
I'm bringing my own luggage.
Now, he did do a bunch of visits to a lot of those guys. And I think there's a good group out there. I do think.
Well, and you said he made the point. He goes, listen, he goes, I don't know a lot of these guys because we haven't developed that relationship with them over the last couple of years because I haven't been here the last couple of years.
Yeah.
You said he did emphasize, I'm going to do everything I can to win with the guys we've got.
For sure. Yeah,
he
wasn't, I don't mean it derogatory, but he's got a plan and he's going to make that plan work, which you can't fault. He's the head coach. He's got to make strides.
And by the way, guys that perform that aren't his guys will be his guys, right? I mean,
100%. Yeah.
So, I mean, that had to help you make a decision fairly, or was it was it tough to make it for you? But
for me, it was, I'm like, yeah, dude, you got to go north. Like, plain and simple, right?
But it had to be hard, too, because I'm sitting there, because you would call me every.
Yeah, I'd keep you in the loop with it.
Yeah, like once a week, like, hey, here's where it's at, here's what's going on. And I'm trying to insert myself, into like, okay, if I'm Issac, what would I do in this situation?
Right.
If I'm you, his father, what would I be telling my kid in this situation? If I'm Matt Rule, what would I be thinking about? How would I deal with this kid?
Right.
In this situation?
Well, and he's got his plate is full. He's got a program that was,
I think it's more screwed up than anybody will ever know.
Oh, yeah. I really think it is.
And we thought it was screwed up after Mike Riley.
Yeah.
And again, no disrespect to Frost. We're friends. I get along with the guy great. But, I mean, boy, there's a lot of stuff missed. A lot.
It's great. And it's
Severe came out with a lot of the same things that we went through with other kids that were getting recruited, just forgotten phone calls, things like that. And yeah, I mean, it's brutal, but so hopefully they do get it flipped and it gets rolling again. But to Rule's credit, I mean, he could have sat there and been like, we'd love to have you here. And then the kid could have gotten just stashed on the sideline, right? He was a walk-on at Penn State back when we were at Nebraska.
Yeah. Well, and you said you had that conversation with him.
Yeah, he came
about
right
that
out.
about the fact that because you were talking with Rule about like, hey, I know Isac's going to be a walk-on.
Yeah.
If he comes to Nebraska, what kind of opportunity is he going to get? And you said Rule touched on his own experience with that.
Yeah, he came right out. He goes, listen, he'll get an opportunity. He goes, when I was the walk-on, he goes, I knew I'd get an opportunity. I also knew that the guy next to me who was on a scholarship was going to get 4 or 5 opportunities. And he's right. I mean, that's how it works.
So the odds aren't in your favor. It's 4-1, or it's 4-1 in favor of the other guy.
We talked earlier about it too. If you're a walk-on, let's say you're ranking players on how they perform on the field, and 5 being the best. Your starters are probably playing at a 4.5, 5. Your backups are 3.5 stars, let's say. Your walk-ons better be to get noticed, better be playing at a 6 or 7. That's how much better you got to be for coaches to really start noticing. Because you're only going to get 1 or 2 opportunities, 5 plays versus 15 or 20.
Wow.
So if you screw up 1 play, they're like, yeah, I knew it. Get him out of here.
So how much agonizing did he do before he made the decision?
So Friday was tough. So Friday afternoon, you get home from the visit, and he's just mentally, you can tell he's wiped. So in and out of naps on the couch and just hanging out, like, dang. He had a couple more questions for Raiola. Ended up touching base with him again. And that almost made it harder because Raiola laid out, here's my starters. Here's my backups. I don't have a backup center yet. So then Isac's like, Dad, I know I can earn that. I'm like, buddy, I know you can too. Are they going to give you that opportunity to? You know, did he say you're going to be the backup center? Well, no. I go, okay. I don't mean to sound like a dick, bud, but show me a program in the nation, regardless of level, that their backup center is not on scholarship. He's like, that's a fair point. Then he goes, what would you do? I'm like, oh my gosh, bud, that's a tough one.
You know what my son, who's sitting right behind that curtain, never does?
Yeah.
Ask me what I would do.
Yeah. Well, 2 parts to it, right? And you even said it. There's a million kids out there that would love to be in that position. And I told him that. I go, bud, you got a golden ticket. This is awesome. You got
and that was
2 opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, that was the point I tried making was like, at the end of the day, either one of these kicks ass.
Yeah, you're not going to go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to walk on at Nebraska and be part of a Power 5 football program. In-state kid, that's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
Or you're going to go to this program up in North Dakota, which, I mean, it's a fucking program. That's a program with capital.
So my
D.
former boss, Ken
go up
Dudzik, his son Christian played up there. I think he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer up there. He was what was part of that first national championship team and part of Craig Bull's recruiting. I mean, they've built a dynasty up there. There's no doubt about it. I mean,
and again, Rule touched on it. He goes, listen, they have a tradition and a culture up there. He goes, we don't. I was like, dang, this is harsh. And he goes, I'm changing that. We will have a culture. He goes, but that place is a factory.
Because it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
I mean, it takes a couple. And he may win with all the portal guys that he's bringing in, but those are still one-and-done guys or maybe a couple years.
Right.
You got to change the culture with them.
They'll get to a bowl game for sure.
Which, I mean,
they don't.
That should be pretty easy for them, I think.
Yeah. Well...
Yeah.
Never assume things, John.
Dude, I thought it was going to be that way under
words there.
Yeah, most of those years under Scott, I thought were bowl game was well within reach. You talk about the whole program thing. One of the things you verbalized this to me on a number of occasions, and it was something I thought about with Ryan, who, for those listening, is my son who's at Augustana. One of the things that you had talked about was you think about the experience that you and I had going to school down in Lincoln. You think about, we walked into a place that had this very strong, very well-established culture with a very stable coaching staff. Everybody knew everybody else. It was, you didn't, I mean, if a new person came in, they got integrated into this incredibly tight-knit community down there. And you
we
won.
have 2 coaches. That was it that came and went. Bowl and
Yeah, although for me even,
Barnes.
but if you got to remember though, for me, John Melton retired after my senior season in high school.
God, that's right.
And Kevin Steele came in. So I remember hanging out with Kevin Steele because I was going to school and working down in the dorms on campus summer before my freshman year at Nebraska. And like I'm hanging out with Kevin Steele. He's the new guy on the staff. And he was there for the 5 years I was there. And then he left. Was it right after that 94 season to go to the Panthers?
I thought he stayed 95. I can't remember now, though. He might have.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm blanking on what year it was he left. If it was after 94, 95. But, yeah, when I hit the door, there was 0 changes on the football staff. And most of those
20-plus year guys, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, somebody like, like Dan Young, who came on board straight from
West Side,
from Omaha West Side.
Yeah.
Dan was like the new guy. Well, I mean, Kevin was because he took over for John Melton in
Didn't
89,
Young and
90, but
end up there the same time?
like 79, 80,
Yeah.
coming from Lincoln Southeast, right around there. 79, 80, 81, right around there. I know Dan was at West Side through 81, at least 81, 82.
Well, even, I mean, like you talked about earlier, my experience with recruitment at Nebraska, I remember you called me, because that Thursday night, if we loop all the way back, that's T.O. ended up offering.
Yeah. And I remember you accepting on the spot.
Oh, it was crazy. Well, and before that,
I told him I needed a couple of weeks to think about it.
But you remember talking to me earlier on about Oklahoma, Nebraska? Like you mentioned that, yeah, you could go there. You'll probably play right away. He goes, but man, that's right in the middle of their coaching changes.
Yeah, Switzer was gone. Gary Gibbs had taken over. And he was, by Oklahoma standards, struggling. They were like in his time there, he was 6-5 on the low end and like 9-2 on the good end. And
right.
I mean, but Gary Gibbs was Oklahoma's Solich. No matter how good he did, how well he did.
Horrible spot to be in.
Yeah, nobody was going to like him. And he was Switzer's longtime D coordinator. He'd been there forever.
Yeah.
So who did Issac call to say, did he call North Dakota State first or Nebraska first?
North Dakota State.
Okay. Did he call Raiola or did he call Rule?
Raiola.
How did he take it?
Good. He's like, man, that's a great choice. He goes, I can't fault you in any of that. Best of luck. And the nice thing is, Raiola had told him before, Issac flat out asking me, do you think I'm a scholarship kid? And Raiola goes, 100% I do. I really do. He goes, but I don't get to make the final decision. So that's hard, right?
Because he's lucky to have a job.
Well, he's on a 2-year contract.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he's double secret probation or something. You never heard about anybody else's contract or length of term, so just his. But he's been awesome.
And if his nephew wasn't a quarterback, he would not have a job.
Right.
I still sit around and think, do you really keep a full,
I don't know,
like a 6-figure salaried assistant around just because you're trying to recruit a kid in the family?
Shit, they offered Dayton, the younger brother.
Yeah, I did see that.
And he's a freshman.
So,
granted, Dylan got a scholarship offer when he was a freshman. And that kid is legit.
But that's the only reason he still has a job. Well, I mean, let's be honest, right?
We'll see. I mean, he's worked with some good players.
So there's
out there.
saying that.
Yeah,
but
but there's days, though. Do you remember? There were days I came in here because we would do those O-line breakdowns during the season. There were days I came in, and it was one of those. It's one of two things. Either A, Raiola's the worst O-line coach in the country, or he is the greatest O-line coach in the country, and he has the worst fucking athletes on the planet. And the thing is, though, too, I'm looking at guys that I played with who have gone down and hung out for multiple practices and observed and have actually helped as volunteer coaches down there. Most of those guys have all said, it wasn't Donnie. It wasn't Donnie.
That's fine. I'm going to ask you both.
I still
it's a yes or no answer. If his nephews aren't good football players, does he still have a job?
I think, yeah.
You're crazy. You're smoking dope.
I could be wrong. I'm
John,
not. I mean,
yes or no?
So the way I saw it working out, so he did his interview early on with Rule, and then Rule told him I got more guys to interview. And then later in that, or 2 weeks later, he ended up getting the job. So was he Rule's first pick? I don't know.
What?
Was he interviewing other guys to be nice with him? I don't know. I like Raiola. I think he'll do a good job.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying usually with new coaches, you don't usually keep guys around.
Right.
It doesn't
Well,
happen
he didn't
enough.
fit the bill. Everybody was saying you need to keep, was it Bush?
Yeah.
yeah, you had Bill
Everybody's like,
Bush.
you need to keep that guy. Well, he was gone quick.
Bill Bush is kind of like Doc Sadler. You just get fired multiple
Right.
times from the same
He
university.
has been
I always feel bad because I think the guy's a really solid coach. He was he
there
was
when
he
I
there
was
when
there.
you were?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a GA when I was down there.
No, I mean, Raiola, he ended it well. He's like, listen, bud, the door's always open here.
Grab me one of your cans of water, dude.
There you go.
Well, that's loud screaming across the.
I need to hydrate after drinking those IPAs.
But yeah, he said the door's open. If something happens up north and doesn't work out, then you're always welcome here. Which, you appreciate that.
Well, if
And
it
you
didn't work
hope
out
that's-
if it didn't work out up north, he's going to Augustana and playing with Ryan. That's what we're gonna
Yeah,
make
there you
happen.
go.
Did you and I ever contact you? Because I reached out to Mark Farley and I said, hey, at least take a look at him. I don't know if you and I looked at.
Is it Clanton?
Yeah.
He did a couple times, and then he took that Iowa State job, and I think he got not overwhelmed, but all the contact stopped after that. And
Yeah.
then he announced that he took that job, and by that time, it was too late for Isaac. He had to commit.
Yeah. I mean, you and I would have been a great place to play too, but it's just,
Yeah.
you wonder how many guys got lost for Mark Farley in that during that transition.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to go be the OC at Iowa State.
Which, I mean, wasn't he? He was an Iowa State guy, and I
believe
mean that's where
so,
he
yeah.
played college
Yeah.
ball at. I thought so.
and you went offense this year too. So
Yeah.
it's-
And they
The,
pump them out, too. They're a great
yeah.
program.
Which it is interesting when you look at some of those schools. Like, I mean, you look at UNI, you look at North Dakota State, you look at South Dakota. You've got these teams that are churning out NFL guys left and right, and it's
Well, and to Isaac, going back when he asked me what would I do, I brought up my situation between Oklahoma and Nebraska. It's like, bud, the only thing I can think of is this, and it doesn't really fit the bill that well. But you have Oklahoma, who's in turmoil, coaching changes, they're maybe average, above average as far as record goes. I was going to play.
Could you imagine if you had gone to
Oh
Oklahoma?
my gosh, my wife reminds me a lot. I would have never met her.
Yeah, that's probably true. You would have, but I mean, you would have been there for like the Howard Schnellenberger, John Blake era.
It was horrible. They went downhill, and we smoked them like 60 to nothing.
oh yeah,
It was
I
almost,
there.
it was
bad.
sad. I mean, I felt bad for him.
So there was none of us liked Colorado. There was zero respect. We all respected OU. It was
Yeah,
probably the best rivalry.
100%.
And then they took it away from us. But no, I brought those two in a mix for Isaac, and I just compared Nebraska when I played was North Dakota State today. OU was Nebraska, and he's like,
Well-
okay, that helps. He goes, apparently, and he goes, I'm going north. I'm like, you need to go to North Dakota State.
And you like find some hunting spots for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and that
He's already
was-
been. It's great.
Well, and that's why I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm going back. I mentioned it earlier, but I mean, you go back to that idea of what you had said about, I mean, we tangented off of this quickly, but the experience that you and I had at Nebraska in the early mid 1990s.
Yeah, I don't think you find your Bamas and Georgias
Well,
probably
you can
have it.
but I
North
mean,
Dakota
it's-
State's got it.
You think about that as a player. What are you looking for in terms of some of these intangibles? you want that sense of culture, you want that sense of belonging, you want that sense of closeness within the team, you want that success, you want everybody, again, not to go PJ Fleck here, you want that sense of being in a program where everybody's rowing the boat in the same direction.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, that's North Dakota State right there. When I looked at the two of them, and I totally get it. I mean, because I talked about the whole, like, fuck, if I was going through this, if I was you, if I was Isaac, if I was Matt Rule, like, what would my thought process be in those different situations? And, I keep going back to that in terms of the overall experience. Like, what am I going to get out of this as a person?
Yeah.
And I don't sit there, and it's not now that it's 30 years later, I don't sit here 30 years later going, okay, yeah, we were I was part of this badass Power 5 football program in the early to mid 90s. What I get out of that, what I still have, what I still think about, what I still consider part of me is those intangibles of, oh my God, that was an amazing group of people. To be part of this program.
The locker room is by far what I missed them. And granted, don't get me wrong, the 3 rings were great. Again, should have been 5 rings.
But the
locker room was
the rings were the side effect of everything else.
Yeah.
And it's that everything else that I look at now. It's the people, it's the overall experience. It's that, like, oh my God, to be part of an organization that functioned the way that organization functioned at that time, at such that high level of success, and how we achieved that, and how I can take those lessons and apply them to my life, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
That's the stuff I think about 30 years later.
Yeah.
It's not oh yeah, I was a Power 5 guy in a major power playing conference with a chance at winning national titles every year. That's not what I go back to.
Are you saying there's more to winning and losing?
Oh my God, yeah. You know what?
But there is the playing experience. Like, for Isaac, he
made
that
play.
comment, like, I can stand on the sidelines and be, he goes, but I will be miserable. He goes, I want to hear my name called. I want to help the team. I don't want to help them in practice. I want to help them during the games. It's like, yeah, I get it, bud. I played. I can't imagine standing on the sidelines.
Is it hard? This is going to be a weird question, because both of you've got a Division II player. You've got now an FCS player. Is it hard that your kids weren't as good as you?
Fuck, not at all.
Okay, but it's a fair question.
No.
Okay?
It's a great... No,
you're going to have a different answer?
I think he's better than me. I mean, I would have paid money for my son's frame. I mean, he's got me beat by 2 inches.
Dude, he's probably taller than me right now.
Dumb smart when it comes to football. Nothing kicked for me until halfway through my senior in high school. Then I was like, oh, now this is kind of making sense. I mean, I was kind of a moron when it came to football.
So you're saying in the mid-'90s, Isaac is full scholarship Division I player?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, he's
pretty easy.
Yeah. Oh.
And even if he was coming out, I mean, I'll go as far as to say if he was coming out this year, I don't see how you don't give him one.
And I probably phrased that wrong. You're saying the word is not as good as you, but maybe not the same opportunity that you had knowing their potential. How's that?
Yeah, there has been a lot of stuff changed, though. I mean, there are legit giants roaming the earth now. I mean, look around.
Look at Teddy.
Yeah, 6'10".
Well,
he's finally listed at 6'10" now.
But but I mean, that's a kid who in 1990, 1993, 1995, that's a kid who, you go back to that era, he'd be looking for a D2 or FCS basketball spot.
Yeah,
that's not a kid who'd be looking for a football spot. He just wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the nature of things at the time. So 2 things here. One, I think about the idea of how would we do in this day and age? Because part of the number of things that made me, I think, a viable option to go to Nebraska to play was the fact that, I mean, it wasn't that I was just big. I mean, I was a big kid.
You were a gorilla.
I was a gorilla.
We'll get into that in a little bit.
I could run. I was incredibly strong, but all of that came out of the fact that I was this complete workout nerd. I was the guy who was going to the library and reading books on kinesiology my junior year in high school. I'm figuring out, okay, what do I got to do to stimulate muscle growth, and what do I need to do from a nutrition standpoint? And hey, Dad, you work for a university. Are there nutritionists there? Yes, there are. Here's a list of questions I have for those nutritionists.
Yeah.
Go ask them. I need to know about this, this, and this. And do you remember my dad would go and do that? And that's the kind of thing that I mean, it was like the opportunity I had from that was great. But I mean, that's the kind of thing where I would sit back and I would go get that kind of information and incorporate that into what I'm doing. Now, turn around
we
and
were taking all the protein shakes and all that stuff before.
oh, I was on chromium and I was taking boron and branched chain amino acids.
There weren't.
I remember when,
But I do remember. I got all my stuff from you, the knowledge part of it. But we were doing hang cleans before people were doing hang cleans in high school. And granted, you go back to Mark Fangman. I mean, we had a power lifter that worked as a strength coach for fun at the high school.
Yeah, and that was amazing to have that as a resource. But I mean, I think about what we had as resources and what we sought out at that time. We were kind of the outliers. You did 100%. Not, you didn't see a lot of kids doing that in that time period. Now, and again, we played. You didn't do anything in the winter in high school. You didn't do wrestling or basketball. So I mean, I did football in the fall. I did track in the spring.
Right.
I spent my winters in high school rehabbing shoulder injuries.
That's true.
But it's I played two sports. Probably would have wrestled if I had not had the shoulder injuries.
Yeah.
Now that being said, I spent a lot of time. I spent all winter lifting weights. I lifted all through spring. I was the guy that I remember, like, after football practice, lifting weights and the coaches coming in. And I remember Lee Zenick, former Husker, John Gingery, still the coach at Lincoln East.
Yeah.
Lincoln East, two head football coaches in their entire history.
God, that's
John,
true. Yeah.
John Gingery, who actually was a walk-on football player at Nebraska. John getting on my keys, you're going to overtrain, because I was lifting during the season in high school.
No such thing.
So anyway, my point is I do kind of look back and I think, like, how good would I be today?
Well, God, now you got X-Edge, you got Warren Academy, you have, First Pick.
Yeah, which honestly, we'd be doing all that stuff at the same time. It's just you and I were complete workout junkies back then. What I wonder is would we be like Joe Bob average today? I mean, we were the outliers back in the late 1980s, early 90s. We were the outliers.
Let's use the Sue Glover pissing match you got into on Twitter, right? Everybody's like, well, you can't compare. Well, Glover would have done the same workouts that everybody. I mean, you would have adapted with the time.
And that was my so that was my thing on that one. Which one, when anybody says who is the best team of all time, nobody is saying, hey, let's pick up the 1971 Nebraska football team, which I would actually argue relative to the time period that they played was the greatest college football team of all time. Sorry, dude, about 95.
Yeah.
Even ESPN thought 71 Nebraska. The 95, our backups, you guys were okay.
We were good.
The thing I go back to is what everybody's like, well, yeah, I mean, if you took 2001 Miami and put them up against 71 Nebraska, 2001 Miami, smoke them. I was like, okay, well, yeah, I totally get that.
Some
what I'm
first rounders.
Yeah, well, what I'm trying to say is relative to the time period in which you play. You can't take people out of their time period. I mean, that That 1924 Notre Dame team was pretty freaking good too. I'm just saying here.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense, and I think with the resources you have now, you're right. Would we have been just another
Because we were taking
kid out there?
We were hardcore into nutrition. We were doing.
You had creatine. You had.
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
guess
we
that
were
was
doing the
college,
weightlifting workouts that. I remember doing the weightlifting workouts then. That now 20, 30 years later, colleges and universities are like, yeah, maybe we should try this.
right?
Yeah, I mean, we were decades ahead of our time in terms of a lot of the stuff we were doing. So I do kind of wonder if like, would we have made it in this day and age? But,
Well, and for me, on a great day, I might have been 6'3", more like 6'2". So for me personally, I was like, well, I got to get as strong as I possibly can because that's going to be my biggest advantage. I'll be as fast as I possibly can. Because there's guys that, I mean,
and you were a soccer
you're going
player
against Jason
up.
Peter and Christian and Ray Megan, like first round draft picks every day. And I grew up playing soccer.
Yeah, you were a soccer guy up until your freshman year in high school.
Yeah.
Like, that was your sport, was soccer.
As I slowly moved back all the way to goalie, finally, I saw writing on the wall that I was no longer going to play soccer.
But even then, I still remember in 8th grade, you made like the Lincoln City All-Star team. And
Yeah, we were a good team.
yeah, you're solid.
But it's soccer.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody cares.
It's European football.
It's European
It's a
football.
communist sport.
Football.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
commie sport.
Now, did Isaac grow during his 2 years at Missouri? He looks taller.
I think he's still squeaking out a little bit there. And granted, you're in that program lifting, so he's thicker, bigger. I mean, faster.
Yeah.
So do you think COVID affected stuff?
100%.
Because I heard that. I mean, because you even heard that from North Dakota State.
Yeah,
when you went
they
up
came
there,
right
they
out
even
and said,
referenced that.
Yeah, they go, we made a mistake on your first go around, and we'll blame COVID on it. Like we didn't get you up here, we didn't see you in person, and
But
I
I
think
heard
his
that,
last visit was like a junior day deal, and after that, he grew another 1.5 to 2 inches.
Oh,
see,
wow.
and that's the thing, because I remember he was like 6'3", 6'3.5" as a junior.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he's pretty much 6'5". And
So he's your size.
Yeah, Isaac's. He's not. The dude's not small. But that was what was disappointing's kind of a disappointing word to use, but that was what was disappointing about it.
You just used disappointing 3 times in like the same sentence.
Yeah. That was the very disappointing word choice by myself. That was the but that was the thing though about it, is that he finishes his junior year. The last time he really gets a chance for people to see him in person was maybe fall of his junior year during maybe game day visits.
Yeah, and then it all shut down.
Yeah. So, I mean, then you hit winter. COVID hit, would have been, January, February of Isaac's senior year in high school. No, January, February of his junior year in high school.
That would have been 20.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So winter of 20, COVID hits. But that's the thing. I mean, that's when you normally would have, I grew that last inch and a half. I've put on that last 15, 20 pounds going into my senior year. This is where, I'm thinking back going to the Nebraska football camp summer before my senior year in high school.
Yeah.
And I show up and I'm like 265, 270, 6'4", 6'5". I've been working with Paul Miles. We've been doing all this.
Remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah.
So Micro's years back up.
Nice.
He was like an old school hardcore AAU track guy. And so he would take John and I out and do all these speed and track workouts with us summers when we were in high school.
So you graduated high school 90.
Spring of 90.
You graduated
93.
93. 3 brothers in the family.
Yeah.
Right? You're the middle child.
Yeah, oldest graduated spring of 88.
And his name is
Steve.
So you got Steve, Rob, and
He
John.
was the run. He's only like 6 feet.
Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay, John, I'm going straight to you. Usually the middle child, Rob, is the troublemaker. He's the lost
What?
soul. Yes.
No.
Yes.
We're the ones
Well, he
trying to
was
hold.
lost.
We're the ones trying to hold shit together.
No, those are
Yeah.
if you have sisters.
What?
Females hold shit together.
Dude, no.
Listen, I come from a family of 4 boys. I haven't talked to 2 of my brothers in 23 years. Okay, and that's no joke. And I talk to one sparingly, maybe like once a year. He moved to Portugal. Kind of tells you where my family's at, right? He's like, I'm gonna get the hell out of the country. He retired at 55 and just left. So that's females hold stuff together. Was he ever a troublemaker?
Me?
No, not really.
So who's the troublemaker of your family?
I was a little asshole.
Really?
Dude, you weren't an asshole. You just had.
I got in a
fun.
lot of trouble growing up.
You had fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed myself.
Like, were you the drinker in high school? Smoke a little weed in high school, stuff like that?
None of that. I drank a little,
Yeah.
but just stupid shit. Like
I just
getting like I could not get in trouble.
I remember. So, yeah, I'm going to drop names here, so I hope it doesn't get him in trouble with his boss at work. Chris Ozentowski.
Oh yeah.
So Chris was an all-state lineman for Lincoln East. You and him were classmates. That was you guys had a good group of athletes there.
Yeah.
So Chris went to, was it Penn?
Yeah, that's
So
right.
he was
on track.
he was an Ivy League guy, went to Penn, played football through shot and disc. Was what, like an international business major. I don't know where Chris is at now, but I guarantee you the fucker's a millionaire.
San Diego somewhere.
Okay.
Or
Probably,
San
yeah.
Diego.
Guess what? It's 70 degrees there right now.
Yeah.
That's a win. So Chris, like the 2 stories about Chris. So this is like the guy you hung out with all through from like 8th grade through end of your senior year in high school. So story number 1 was like when Chris was at Penn, he and a couple of buddies were like, hey, let's go up to the Letterman show, because they're in Philly. It's a quick train ride up to New York, do the Letterman show. So when they wanted to go, it was the night before a football game. It was a Friday night when they were taping the Letterman show, that they were going to go up. So they all go up to the show. The coaches think they're like ensconced post bed check in their rooms in their dorm rooms at Penn. And you know how Letterman would always do like these little contests with members of the audience?
Yep.
It would take prizes up to them. So Chris does it. Chris and his buddies on the Penn football team go up. They're in the audience. They end up winning one of these little audience participation prizes.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, do you remember? And Letterman like walks up like a case of Bud Light to him as the prize.
Yeah.
So
all on camera.
So here's Chris picking up his case of beer from David Letterman on TV, national TV on a Friday night before a football game.
With like a pin warm up on.
Yeah, when they're supposed
So
to
it's
be in bed in their dorm room night before a fucking football game.
That's awesome.
While the coaches are watching.
Yeah.
So
Well, at that point, you either go, well, we're busted now anyway, so it doesn't matter. So let's enjoy the ride.
Anyway, that's who you hung out all through high school with.
Those
that
were my
guy.
people.
The best story I remember was somehow the 2 of you guys got like a hold of a bottle of like, it was probably like Everclear. I was going to say vodka, but I don't think it was
some
that
cheap
good.
booze or something.
It was like some kind of Everclear. And I still remember that like the way like Chris was like, hey, I'll hide at my house. Nobody will ever find it. And he just tossed it under his bed.
Yeah.
And his mom's vacuuming.
Brilliance.
She goes into him.
Dink, dink. What's that?
It was. She goes
I need
in.
to clean around that.
Here. And like the vacuum cleaner goes under the bed. And and she's like, what the hell's that? She looks under there. It's a bottle of vodka.
Yeah.
Like I said, probably Everclear. But the best part of the story is that she like grounded it into his room with like an old school, wait till your dad comes home.
Yeah.
And like,
Clearance.
yeah. And like, what did Chris say? He said his dad comes, you tell the story.
We were out that night, so, and hides it under there. So Chris comes up in the morning, knows he's in trouble. And his dad's got a shotgun, a beer, I think
like a glass of wine and a shot of liquor.
and a shot of the booze. And he goes, which one of these would be
Most
dangerous? And Chris is a smart ass. He goes, well, I suppose if you drank them all and did the shot and then went hunting, that'd be pretty freaking dangerous. His dad's a big guy too. Just goes ballistic. He just loses it on him. He's like, yeah, I'm already in trouble now, so I might as well be a dick.
Did your dad ever lose it on you guys?
I don't,
No,
not really.
really.
You know, I mean, of all the stuff, I mean, that
They
was
really
probably the worst. I mean, I don't
We're
think
getting
we
good
got
grades. I mean, we got a little bit of a pass because you're getting great grades. You're freaking D1 athlete, right? I mean, you're on Scott. They don't have to pay for you, so they're
Yeah,
ecstatic.
they
It's
sent
like,
three.
well,
They sent 3 kids to school, and
Yeah,
didn't have to
pay.
and didn't have to spend it.
Steve didn't play sports, did he?
Nobody.
no, but he was
Academic?
Yeah, full academic.
Okay, that leads me to the next question. Who's the smartest one in the family?
common sense wise. I'd go Steve. Book
That means
smart.
you're third,
Book
Rob.
smart.
Okay, Steve was the. So Steve was the.
You're the dumbest one in your
Easy
family.
target.
No,
You're the dumbest one in your family.
Damn. Fucking Iowa.
Damn.
No, so it was one of those. So,
That was
okay,
easy. Walked right into it.
okay, you know what? It was one of those. Steve was the textbook smart. I was the standardized test smart. You were the common sense smart.
Yeah. You didn't have
How's
to
that?
study, which killed me when I lived with you.
Sorry.
Like, I had to work my butt off, but he would just, I got everything memorized on that can,
it's
and
funny.
would just leave. I'm like, what the? No, dude, I got to study.
I was just with Aaron Graham out at Barnado, and that's the first thing he said. Hey, Rob, why? He goes, he would just memorize. And he had he had a photogenic brain, and you just memorized it.
We had, what
Had a photogenic memory?
Yeah, whatever that is.
Greek class we took? Roman, I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, scientific Greek and Latin?
Oh, yeah, we took that together, and you're just blowing through.
Scientific Greek and Latin. You're like from Goodwill Hunting. You know the piano. It just makes sense.
Actually, the best part of scientific
Greek
Greek and
mythology.
Latin. Oh, was it? Well, I remember
Yeah, we took a few together, and every
Yeah.
one of them like, hey, let's go out. I'm like, no. Dude, we got a test. I got to study for it. Nah, you'll be fine. You fail it. He gets an A. I'm like, how'd you get an A? Oh, that was easy. Like, what? No, it wasn't.
So I don't know if this is true
I miss school.
because you and I haven't hung out that much. But you're a lot quieter than Rob. Has he always been a long-winded windbag that he just doesn't shut the fuck up?
He's lucky he's not like an internist or in like a primary care physician because he'd make no money. He'd see 2 patients a day.
Yeah, that's probably.
One of the funniest things, and I thought because I was at your dad's funeral and it was so well received and so many people there. But was your brother going? Yeah, Rob was supposed to do this, but we'd be here like all day long. I'm paraphrasing, but he's always like said Rob couldn't speak at the funeral because nobody would leave.
Coming out of my nose.
We would have been there forever.
And I remember I'm up top
shit.
and I'm laughing because I don't know how many people in that church got that joke, but I'm just laughing my ass off.
There's about
I shouldn't
30
laugh at a
people
funeral, but
probably.
oh my god,
Yeah.
I literally had Coors Light coming out of my nose laughing.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Steve freaking nailed that, dude. Oh, my God. Oh, crap. My
But
eyes are watering now. Oh.
that's interesting because you guys all had. I mean, just from a behavioral standpoint, not getting in trouble with your dad working at the university, that had to change the whole dynamic of.
Oh, I got a great story on that.
All right, go.
2 good buddies that I played with down there. I'm still working on it. We're still. I am ashamed. So, father's director of housing, right?
Yeah.
So we're hanging out in the dorms and we're jacking around. There's a thing called elevator hopping where you can climb up on the top and you can jump.
No, that's called stupid.
I didn't say we were smart. So we're doing that, and it gets late, and I'm like, I'm out of here, guys. I take off, get back to my dorm, crash. They get busted. So the RA, whoever.
So you were there.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I totally remember that.
I was there. So I
remember Dad was like, thank God John wasn't doing that.
So they get busted. The next day, my dad calls, And he's like, hey, do you know so-and-so and so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah, I'm really good friends with them. Why? Well, this is what's going on. I'm like, I was there too. I didn't say that. I'm like, yeah, listen, it's a one-time deal. We're all morons, Dad. I'm going to let it slide. It's fine, but geez, this is just stupid. I'm going to keep it I don't think the coaches found out, which was good. But
it's dangerous too.
Yeah. You're young. You're fine. But yeah, having him down there was, you ran into those issues where everybody's a moron in college, right?
Yeah.
You're away from home, you're drinking again, you're having fun. I mean, yeah. And then your dad works.
Yeah.
So, damn it.
Man, you're held to a higher standard. There's no doubt about it.
I used to go to his office, and he had that couch in there, take a nap.
He had a huge office.
Did you go hang out with your dad very much when he was there on campus, or did you guys stay away?
I mean, I'd call it a good solid medium. I mean, once in a while you'd stop by his office and say hi, and
probably more so my freshman year.
Yeah, I mean the other thing is University Housing actually ran food service for the entire campus. So they actually ran food service for the training table.
Yeah, he'd come over all the time and eat.
Yeah, but that's what he was doing regardless if we were there or not. So he was there. He would make these rounds, and he would go actually eat lunch during the week at all the different dorms and the union. Like I said, the stadium, the training table, because food service was part of what he did. So.
And I don't know if it's the same now, but at that time it was, per the rules, it had to be open to all students.
Yeah.
It was technically the training table. But
I think that's still the deal. I just remember at the time. Well,
because at Missouri, it's all key carded, and you're not getting in without a key card. So there's no...
Yeah,
Isaac said there was no regular students.
Yeah, although when we were there, I mean, you had, about the only people who ate at the training table who weren't athletes, it was all the chemistry and biology grad students because they were right there. You had Hamilton Hall and Manor Hall.
But it didn't even last that long. I mean, they came over right when it opened up, I would say, and then we made them feel somewhat uncomfortable.
Who can drink more beer between you two?
What beer, though?
Just say you got Coors Light.
Rob's fatter. He can drink way more.
Damn, that made me feel bad about myself.
No, you're bigger than him.
Yeah, when you're 6'5", you can carry a little more.
Who's got the bigger and better gun collection?
Yeah, that's easy.
He
started earlier.
Pride.
Yeah. Why do you hate the Second Amendment, John?
He started earlier.
Weak effort.
I had a motorcycle for a while, so I get into it late.
Still got the bike?
Yeah, I don't think I'll get rid of it.
Yeah.
I haven't ridden it. But
I'd still keep it. It's a good-looking bike.
Anniversary Harley.
Who's a better shot? Who?
I'm pretty damn good.
You're good.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you hunt, though, so.
Yeah,
that is true.
Hitting a target's one thing. Hitting a pheasant's a completely different, or a deer from...
Yeah, I will give you that. I need to get...
Because you don't hunt, do you?
Not a lot, but God, it's one of those things where...
Hunting season's right in the middle of, well, you're busy
wrestling.
And my busy season. Yeah. Once your kids are out. My kids are gone, so it's... I got free for all to hunt.
Yeah, and we need to do right. But your daughter is a full scholarship volleyball player at the University of Missouri. So
right, yeah.
She like it down there?
She does. Like we were talking earlier, she's got a new coach, and
that's all. And that's gonna be hard on kids. That's you're probably thinking, do I go back? Do I not go back?
Right.
But they get spring ball too, so she'll know after that, right?
She's a weekend now to spring training, and it's regulated by hour. I can't remember how many hours the coaches can be with them, but I think it's like 20 a week.
So
sorry, I'm laughing about the hours thing because
Yeah,
I remember I was one of the team captains in '94, so we had to sign the hour sheets for, no joke, for the NC2A.
Oh God!
And it was basically
Violation
like,
there.
did you or
90
did you
hours a
not practice for only 20 hours this week? And you're saying, yes, we only practiced for 20 hours this
In the
week.
pit.
Yeah.
Not up on the field or anywhere else.
Yeah.
Man.
But that's interesting. For her,
Yeah.
I think about, again, your experience and my experience. Did you have Zenek for high school coach all the way through? Did Gingery take over?
Zenek.
Okay. Same coach all the way through high school. Same coaching staff all the way through college. That's an interesting thing to have to go through what she's going through. Where you had a volleyball coach.
You're recruited by this coach that, lack of a better word, loves you as an athlete, and then now they're gone. It's like, now what? This lady didn't recruit me. She recruited these other people, but she's trying to make an impact. She's got to flip that program. The AD brought in a new basketball coach 2 years, maybe it was just last year. They're packing the house now.
Yeah,
I mean, they're selling out games.
Well, they're halfway decent. Now Kansas kicked the crap out of them down there, but they're not bad. They should be able to win in the SEC. Missouri's got a really good basketball tradition and history. I mean, they've been down somewhat, but because Conzo Martin is not there anymore, right? On the men's side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I miss the Norm Stewart days. God, the old school
Northern Iowa guy.
Yeah, the old school Big 8 days in basketball were amazing.
They were great. They were really
Norm
good.
Stewart, Billy Tubbs.
Yeah. Johnny Orr.
Johnny Orr was good.
Yeah. Hell, even at that time, Danny Nee for that matter.
Dude, Danny was outstanding.
Listen, I told this on the radio the other day. My favorite Danny Nee story. Danny was awesome. I miss Danny just because he was.
If you ever had a chance to hang out with him outside of the coaching / university arena, great dude.
The greatest thing Danny Nee ever told me, he goes, we were just talking about eligibilities. He goes, Travis, I can keep a dead guy eligible.
That's awesome.
I'll never
And
forget.
he could.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it always shocked me when somebody at a public university. I think it's different at a Notre Dame, a Drake, something like that. No matter where you were, was academically ineligible. Because when's the last time you really heard of anybody academically ineligible at a school? You don't hear of it anymore.
It's not much.
No.
I can't remember the last kid.
I mean, it's just
You hear
real
rumors, but not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I haven't.
to be academically ineligible, that means you're not going to class. Period.
You have to work very hard.
Yes.
To be ineligible.
Yes. I mean,
college is not that hard.
It's not.
You go talk to the teacher, and you're going to get
I
at least
didn't think.
a C.
Yeah, I didn't think it was hard, but
I mean, that's crazy. Absolutely. So do you guys see each other? You know, I get the feeling you guys talk a lot on Twitter and text message. Do you guys see each other that much? For being in the same town?
not as much as I'd like. Although, you know what? Compared to a lot of former Huskers, we both have day jobs.
What do you do, John? I don't even know what you do.
Medical equipment, so your total joints. I sell all those.
You selling to Rob's Hospital?
Unfortunately, no.
What's up with that?
Yeah, contract.
Anesthesia has nothing to do with the medical equipment contracts. I'm just putting that out.
You can't even make an introduction to like Levi Sheppers for him?
I've tried.
We've been working on it.
You know Levi.
We thought we had a shot at the shoulders, which we still might, but we'll see.
So Zimmer
It's a good
makes a
place
good
to-
product.
Did you ever want to be a doctor?
For like 30 seconds, and then it went away quickly.
That was called organic chemistry.
Something you just memorized to get an A on.
Too much school. So
I
got bored and I was
loved
done.
organic. Oh my God. That was like
See,
that might have been,
that.
you know what's weird? So
he
like,
says that.
like basic chemistry kind of sucks. Like I still sit around and I'm like, they got these units of measurement called moles.
Oh boy,
Do
mole
you,
map.
do you remember that? Like
lions.
molar measurements,
Yeah.
like moles. And I'm like little rodents that dig holes in. What the fuck's a mole? I still sit around.
Spelled similar.
Like I do not understand moles. But organic chemistry, that might have been, no joke, the easiest class I had in college.
Says nobody ever. That's what kicks people out of
I mean,
med
there were classes I had that I will tell. I mean, if you ask, okay, what were the top 5 toughest classes you had in college? I'll tell you. I'm just telling you, organic was easy.
Man,
This is why.
I should have gone into.
It's hard.
Honestly, I should have gone in.
And yet you're the dumbest one of the three boys in your family. That's the only thing I got out of this whole podcast is that you're the dumbest of the three.
I liked physics, but it was hard. I had to get a tutor for it, but I liked it.
I liked physics. Actually, you want to
my professor was that
like the one
whatever the physics guy that
used to do the videos. Does he still do those?
I don't.
You had him?
Yeah, he was awesome.
Oh fuck, I didn't have.
So he would
him.
sit down with me and go.
I actually had a real professor.
Oh my god.
Which actually, so like I remember, like actually my one regret was for some reason I kind of had this hunch that I wasn't going to be great at physics, and so I went into my physics
the common
class
sense side.
and like day 2. I went to the prof, had the paperwork all ready to go. I'm like, hey, I'm taking this pass-fail. And he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I want to take it pass-fail. And he's like, why? And I'm like, yeah, just don't worry about it. Sign the paperwork, buddy. And so I took it pass-fail, and I ended up getting like a really solid A out of it. And I remember he asked me, he was like, why did you take this class pass-fail when you got an A? You're perfect. I mean, you were great at it. And he was like, and I, at the time, I actually had pushed physics off until the very end of my undergrad time down there.
You know what I never took as an undergrad? Physics, organic chemistry, anything like that.
You took like
I took
speech communication.
I took speech communications,
broadcasting
public
101.
how to like edit video, how to edit audio, stuff like that really contributes nothing to the world.
Yeah, but you actually have skills to put this damn podcast
Well, that's
together.
true. Speaking of the podcast, do you listen to the podcast? Do you ever listen to your brother?
I do.
Okay.
Not a ton, not frequently, but
Man.
back and forth I do.
It's one of the most popular ones in the Husker. And Husker fans tolerate me because I'm still an Iowa fan. I did learn from Rob over the weekend that one of his bucket list things before he dies, he wants to go to an Iowa wrestling match at Carver Hawkeye Arena.
Oh, big time.
I could
They
make that
wrestling
happen.
today?
Yeah, they lucked out. They won.
Did they?
Yeah.
Dude, they smoked the Huskers.
Ooh, that was ugly.
Yeah.
That was an ass kicking.
So, but I mean, okay.
By the way, and I'm not
Okay, hold
on. Next Friday night, Iowa Penn State. It's going to be
That's going to be baller.
at Penn State.
That's that's a regular season national title matchup.
Penn State, what's his
Penn
name?
State will win.
Cale
Cale Sanders?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wheaties box.
Wheaties box.
Dude, he is
Yeah.
just amazing up there.
But the thing is, though, if you look at his coaching philosophy, so it's interesting because it's all based upon the concept of go out there and screw up, try it. If you got a move you're working on, give it a try. If you screwed up, fine, we'll go back, we'll fix it in practice the next week. Just freedom to go do what you want to do and give it a try and cut loose and wrestle. Now, I just, on the wrestling side of things, you look at Iowa and Nebraska losing to Iowa.
They didn't just lose to Iowa.
I get it, but I've got
Was it just a beat down? I didn't see it.
It wasn't even close. Peyton Robb won.
That was it.
Yeah. I've got a massive amount of respect for what Mark Manning has done and continues to do
agree.
in Lincoln because it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good comparison.
Well, if you're a stud in Nebraska, you're probably going to go Iowa or Iowa State, or is Okie State still a...
Okie State, John Smith's still down there. He's still kicking ass.
Michigan's really good right now.
Michigan's
Iowa
solid.
State.
That Millard South kid's going to Michigan.
Iowa State's pretty good.
Joel Adams.
They smoked East.
They
that 'cause
did.
Elijah's wrestling, but...
Joel Adams is amazing.
Well, he's taking a year to
nuts.
go wrestle.
Yeah, he's going to go to
trial for the
international.
Olympics,
So Millard South's a little next level. All those guys are nuts.
Scott used to be. It all runs in cycles.
It kind of does a little bit.
So isn't Gross coming back too a little bit? They used to be.
They've had they've actually had they had a really good year in football.
Yeah, they did go away with the state title game.
Yeah, so they've been really solid. But anyway, Nebraska versus Iowa in wrestling.
Yeah.
I sent that text to you about looking at, if you go look at the NC2A top 25 in wrestling, 12 of the 25 teams are Big Ten teams.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And I get it. A lot of teams have cut wrestling, but you have one conference
That's dominating.
that literally has locked down 50% of the top 25.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about how great the SEC is, in a good year when the Big Ten has a good year, how good the Big Ten is. Imagine if the Big Ten or the SEC had literally 50% of the top 25 in football.
Right.
The Big Ten does have that in wrestling. 12 of the 25 teams in the top 25 are Big Ten teams, which is the same for volleyball.
Yeah.
Big Ten owns volleyball, they own wrestling.
Right.
So, Nebraska will probably finish 3rd through 5th in the conference. I'm thinking about getting to the Big Ten tournament. I'm betting they finish 3rd through 5th. They're going to finish 5th through 8th
Nationally.
Yeah. And everybody's, I
So
remember
State, Michigan, Iowa, or maybe Penn State, Iowa.
Iowa, it's going to be a
Penn State will win it. Just the tournament. Penn State will win the tournament.
Penn
Oh,
State's
again?
nuts.
National?
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
they're nuts.
We talked earlier, not being a good fan. When you get down to nationals for wrestling, even I'm not a basketball guy, but
By the way, Missouri.
yeah, they're great in the Big 12.
Oh my God, they're tearing it up in the Big 12 for wrestling.
Yeah.
Well, it's not the Big 12. They're in that. There's that. I call it. It's that other conference.
Well, because Northern Iowa's in it. They've taken all the. It's the land.
Iowa's Big 12. Iowa and Wyoming are Big 12 wrestling.
Iowa State.
I'm sorry. Northern Iowa and Wyoming are Big 12 wrestling.
Right. Yes.
Missouri is it's the conference. It's like this.
Well, they
everybody else that it's like it's the everybody else conference. It's like Army.
No, they're Big 12.
It's the land of misfit.
Are
toys.
they Big 12?
Missouri's Big 12 for wrestling now because they were MAC and this year they jumped back. They were
okay. I was still.
They've gone back and forth. But
Please take us back. Please take us back.
Yeah.
Either way, Missouri's tearing it up in wrestling right now. They've made some big strides the last couple of years. So,
yeah, I was trying to look, but
maybe it's not on there.
Yeah, maybe I can't find it. John, thanks for coming in, man. This is good stuff.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I can't believe it's taken 10 years to get you on the podcast. I've only asked Rob every year for the last 3.
again, some of us have day jobs, Travis.
He gets sidetracked easy.
Yeah, that's why we've moved to
I do tangents.
Hey, remember that BetFred Sports is the local book for Eastern Nebraska. Drive to Iowa, and you're going to be set to go. In Western
Colorado,
Nebraska,
Arizona.
well, Western Nebraska, drive to Colorado. If you use the BetFred Sports Iowa app, new customers who make their first bet wager of $50 will get $111 in Fred bets and up to $200 in Fred bets per week for the first 5 weeks of betting with BetFred. Visit BetFred Sportsbook Iowa app. Just download it in the Apple or Google Play stores and start betting now. Must be 21 plus. Located in Iowa, so that means you got to cross the river, use the geotagging, and place your bets in Iowa. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-BETS-OFF. If you are listening from around the country, in addition to Iowa and Colorado, you can bet with BetFred Sports in Arizona, Maryland, Ohio, Washington, Louisiana, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. Rob, you want to go to Vegas for a weekend?
Vegas.
With
It is
me?
a fun town.
We might be able to stay at the new Virgin Hotel where the brand new, we could record down there. Maybe Owen wants to go to Vegas with us too.
Owen definitely wants
Rob,
to
you
go
could
to
write it
Vegas.
off for Academy. It's in Vegas.
Dude, I could, yeah.
Oh, no, that's
There
going to
you
be
go.
my write-off is what it's going to be. And we just got word. He got in really late. Want to welcome back for 2023, Connor Orr is going to be on with the podcast with Orr and Horrigan Law Firm. Go to ORR Horrigan, HORGAN.com. Call 402-408-6488 to schedule a consultation. They handle almost everything. Of course, Connor's a sports agent. We'll have him on talking some NIL stuff, but civil litigation, criminal defense, contract attorneys, personal injury, business attorneys, you name it. Orr and Horrigan is the law firm to call. For Dr. Rob Zatechka, John Zatechka, his brother, is here. I'm Travis Justice. We will talk to you next time on the Doc Talk Podcast, presented by BetFred Sports.